We believe it's making a big difference in the world of budgeting because we don't believe in anything being forced or stagnant. We want you to
Hmm.
feel like your budget can change with your life and maybe your support changes too. But we want the human aspect to be front and center because in a world where technology seems to be like front and center, we don't want to lose the human element.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Ridge Podcast. I'm Meg. No Fred this week, but I do have a special guest, Kristin Wade from MyBudgetCoach. We are super excited to have her. Welcome, Kristin.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to reach out because we have people who can invest through our regulation crowdfunding platform, Ridge. And what we really think is important is that prior to doing these regulation crowdfunding investments is that people have a solid financial foundation. And so we want to make sure we get them the tools that they need to have that solid foundation so they can come back and invest when the time is right for them. So we want to connect our investors with MyBudgetCoach. And Kristin, how about we start with what is MyBudgetCoach?
It's a great question. And we get this a lot because everyone budgets, whether it's just checking your bank accounts before you go to the store or a super detailed spreadsheet or an app. And we found that a lot of people were failing with budgeting pretty quickly, and you and I recording mid-January, and traditionally this is when people quit their resolutions. In fact, just a
Sure.
few days ago was like the national quitting day when basically everyone gives up, right? And budgeting is right up there with dieting or health initiatives or the typical resolutions. So we're like,
Yeah.
how can we help people? And as financial coaches, we know that individualized accountability is huge.
Mm,
Yet, to access a coach, whether it's nutrition, business, finance, anything, it can be pretty expensive,
sure.
right? I think it's worthwhile. I think us coaches have earned the right to charge a fair living, but it's hard for the average American to get started and to see the value in a coach. I had those hesitations as well when I first became a coach. Hiring a business coach, I was like, oh my gosh, I see all those numbers, and it seems like a big investment. So you take a
Mhm.
leap of faith. What we do at MyBudgetCoach is we pair a premium software. So we've got an app you can get on any browser with a coach from day one.
Mm.
You start with a free 35-day trial. You pick a coach immediately right off the bat. You can see their one-on-one meeting pricing. You can see their experience and what their focus is. Pick one that resonates and then jump right into the software. Then you follow that coach's virtual avatar. So they have written their script. And you may think, oh, this looks pretty similar to AI or what ChatGPT can do. We put our coaches through rigorous training. They have handwritten. So I could be like, Meg, first you're going to do this with your money. What bills are coming up? So I packaged my coaching down into a virtual version, and so have 30 other coaches with
Yeah.
us. That way you're like, okay, I can try out Kristin. I can see if I like her style. I put some terrible dad jokes in mine, like, oh, I like that. Or maybe some people don't, right? And you can try a coach before you're even face to face. And then when something comes up like, oh my gosh, I'm having a baby, my husband lost his
Mm.
job, or we want to move to this state, is this a good opportunity? You're not wondering who to ask. You
Yeah.
can book a call with that coach. You know their rate. It's substantially lower than the rates they charge for their full package clients. And that way we get the combination of the numbers and the support. We believe it's making a big difference in the world of budgeting.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're making it a lot more accessible for people.
And a big question is do I have to want to pay? And our pricing is the same as the apps out there. So as of this time, $14.99 a month, or you could pay
Wow, that's so
$98.99 a
great.
year. Yeah, you
Yeah.
never have to pay more than that. There's no secret upsells or, expensive packages waiting for you behind that. It's as needed coaching. And some of our users never want to meet with the coach. They just know they're there in the wings.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So let's say my goal in my family is we're trying to pay down some debt. And I come to my budget coach. Let me ask you this question. As I'm like looking through for my coach, do I go through a set of questions? Do I look through a bunch of profiles? Like, how do I get matched with my coach?
Yeah, so it's totally your choice. So you may find your coach through social media or something and see
Oh,
they work
okay.
with us and be like, ooh, I want to work with Nasima McElroy, or ooh, I want to work with, Haley Brownwoods from Avocado Toast. And they're like, I like that person already, or you're like, I just need someone. And you can see, like we have a coach who's paid 6 figures of debt down. In fact, several who have done that. We have coaches who focus on student loans.
Mhm.
I happen to do the niche of healthcare workers, right? So you
Okay.
can see their bio, also their price point. Each
Mm.
coach sets their hourly rate, and then you can decide what's best for you. And then you're not stuck.
Yeah.
So if you get through and you're like, maybe it'd be a better fit to try someone else, that's an option too, because we don't believe in anything being forced or stagnant. We want you to feel like your budget can change with your life, and maybe your support changes too.
Yeah, and I'm just, as you're saying that, thinking about changing, how important it is that I'm going to say vibe. I wish I could think of a better word, but how important it is you vibe with your coach, right? Finances can be a pretty personal topic for a lot of people. So you want to find someone who you really get along with, or at least you don't trust really well.
Yes. And there's limits to the virtual avatar. We know that. So there's a pretty comprehensive tutorial that you start with that walks you through the basics of how to budget. But then you're like, I really want to pay down debt. Which one should I do first? And that's a big question. There's so many answers in the world. And we don't want people to be on Google or looking up YouTube videos and trying to figure out, and then being sold a system they don't need, or forced into like upselling a book, right? We want them to have that. So some of our coaches have specialized conversations like, hey, I see you want to tackle some debt. Like, click this button, we'll talk about it. And then when you know you've reached the end of that like applicability, if you will, you could always book time and say, hey, this is my concern. Your 1 hour goes by, and then you can decide when to book with them again. So that's unusual in coaching. I believe in packages, but some people don't need a full package. They need intros, and then they can choose if they want to do more.
Sure, sure. Very customizable, it sounds like.
Yeah, and we're really the first in the industry that's doing that. There's a lot of amazing programs. There's great software out there. There's software that does more than we do. But we want the human aspect to be front and center, because in a world where technology seems to be like front and center, we don't want to lose the human element. And our coaches are even available via message center. You're like, Kristin, I have one question. Why is this number funny? Can I just ask you one and not pay your hourly rate? Most of our coaches opt into the secure chat. So you're not feeling like, oh, I don't want to pay her rate for a single question.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you tell me kind of what's your user base like now, and how are you finding new people to use MyBudgetCoach?
We are all over. And so we get users from across the board, different levels of tech comfort. I will say you will generally do better if you can navigate the basics of a computer, although it's not required. I've definitely coached some people like circling on the screen, like click this button, and that's kind of what my avatar hopes to eliminate. Is I coached on other platforms in the past where people would pay me good money to sit with them, and I would circle on the screen, click, okay, you see this? So I have packaged that up virtually. Right? So people can try that out at their own speed. What this really works well for are busy people who can't commit to an hour a week for 12 weeks. Yeah. Maybe they got little ones, or it's funny, my niche has ended up being night shift healthcare workers who want to work on it while their patients are asleep at 2 a.m. I'm not up at 2 a.m, but they can access the virtual me. And our user base is ever shifting. And so we're trying all the avenues. You and I met at FinCon, and we have had so many good connections from there. Good. A good chunk comes from employer packages. So we have a program where maybe you're smaller and you don't have, 50, 60,000 to pour into a financial literacy program. You can invest much less than that, get your people coaches, and they can do it on their own time. So a good chunk from employers, and many are just people who are like, hey, I want to do better with my money and I need to start somewhere.
That's great. What do you find has the biggest influence on a user's success with MyBudgetCoach?
I think it's across the board. It doesn't matter if it's with MyBudgetCoach or any other avenue. Again, we have a lot of spreadsheet like aficionados who are really dedicated to that. Right? We've even talked about that. All that matters is sticking to it. Okay. And being able to have the coach who's like, hey, I see you've been stuck on box 72 for like a couple days. Is there anything you need help with? Because the user can click back and reread things, but sometimes it gets lost in translation. So having the ability to sit down and keep trying, as well as someone who you can ask, those are the two pieces. And I've noticed the users who are most successful are the ones who dedicate at least a little bit of time every week to checking their numbers. Yes, and with the reason, right? Like I actually just had a big influx of new users who are like, I want to invest, but I don't know how much money I have, or like I see this cool campaign I want to put money into, but I'm paycheck to paycheck. Like, how do I break that? So having a strong reason to keep you going makes all the difference. And it takes the shame away from it, right? Because think about that big, scary, like, okay, a garage, a junk drawer, a closet, it's like growing in there, and there's more stuff every minute you don't look at it. And it just seems so stressful. But the moment you open it up, you're like, oh, I could be done in 2 hours. Our finances are the same. Yes, it may be scary. Yes, it can be hard to face. But when you finally do, and when you repeatedly work on it, that kind of takes the shame away, and it replaces it with empowerment.
Yeah, that's great.
And I want to point out to like the power of connection and just meeting new people and just seeing like what they have to offer and what their values and goals are. Like there's something to be said about learning and like following your podcast and like getting all of these good tips and just trying new things, right? Like this was new for both you and I, right? Getting to try new things. And I really want to point out to your audience that like it's scary, but you have nothing to lose. Whether it's with us, like we want the world to budget, regardless of how you do it, or with a different system, just try something new and you'd be surprised at how well you can do.
Yeah, get going on it. And then there's that freedom in knowing what's going on, consistency to keep going, and then that empowerment to, then you get to make decisions about your money that you didn't think you were going to do before, right? Have the money to invest, be able to buy that house, whatever it is.
Yes. And a couple other things I wanted to just touch on is like how we're different. So we are similar to some of the other major apps out there in that we are zero based. And I know you had talked about that in another show. For those of you that haven't heard about it, it can be like, okay, you know, it's not super clear when you Google it. It's kind of a business term. We're really working to make it more accessible and understandable to the average person. But some top tips are that you don't budget money you don't have yet. And if you're coming from Mint, you know, rest in peace, or from any of those other types of apps, you may be like, wait a second, I make this much a month, but I only have 1,000 in my checking account. And your budget is only going to let you assign 1,000 to groceries and your mortgage and whatever you have going on. And that scarcity can be scary. So I've worked with another zero-based software for a while, and without that support, I don't think people do very well because they're like, I know I'm going to get $4,000 more, but it's only letting me do 1,000. Am I broke? Can I afford my life? And usually the answer is yes, but oftentimes you find that when you're forced to see the scarcity of your money, that is when you have to make some decisions about where it's going. And that shows you where your values are very quickly.
Yeah. And where there's a current misalignment between values and your behavior.
And it can be uncomfortable to face that alone. I know when I first started it, I was like, well, this is interesting. Granted, that was like over a decade ago, and I've been more comfortable with it. You know, that's a big piece when you're looking at goals like investing or saving. If you're planning for money you don't have yet, any wiggle room is lost. So for example, I was a nurse in my past life, and I worked with some nurses who seemed like they had all their act together. I came in one day for my shift, and it was a busy ICU, but people were stressed. I'm like, what's going on? Do I need to jump in? Is there a patient situation? And Meg, they were stressed because the pay was one day late. Panicked. I'm talking like these are experienced, some masters prepared, 20, 30-year veteran nurses, and even new nurses who have no reason to be panicking. They were all losing their minds. For one day, the payment processor was late. I have bills, my credit card is late, you know, and that's when these topics came up. And that was a pivotal moment in my career as a future financial coach, thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot more people who are paycheck to paycheck than I thought.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me, you know, having been a coach for 3 years now, coaching the doctors who make more in a month than I made in a year. Sometimes I look at their money and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would kill to have that, right? That moment of jealousy. They can be paycheck to paycheck and struggling. Granted, it's going to be different than the people who are like maybe a paycheck away from housing instability, but it's wild because more money is not the answer. And so many people think I need to pick up a side hustle, or I need to, you know, invest so I can make more. All of those are good things. But if you don't have a grip on the day-to-day, you will never be thoroughly successful in those endeavors. No. And what I love about it is like a coach or even a good friend or someone trusted can help you realize like perfection is not the goal. And to me, too strict of a budget is like a crash diet. And I tell people, all my clients come around, they're ready to stop eating out, stop having fun, stop buying clothes. I'm like, wait a second, you cannot live like this. Yes, you'll have a couple hundred freed up each month, which feels good, but really kind of finding that balance of enjoying your life, but not pushing yourself into debt or living beyond your means. And that's hard to do alone.
Yeah, I imagine so. And also, I was just wondering about how you see it function with couples as well. Kind of if one partner is on board and another isn't, and I imagine you see a lot of different dynamics with that, I guess is a good way to put it.
You know, what's funny is I don't specialize in couples, and I've done a few because just about every single time they are vastly different in their money management. Spender, saver, worried about it, not worried about it. one person does all the work, the other person spends, you know, so
Yeah.
it's hard to get someone on the same page unless that is your specialty. So we have some coaches who enjoy couples. We even have, you know, couples who coach. So Haley and her husband
Mm.
will share like kind of their experience together as couples paying down debt. But it is tricky because the more people you add, and that little kid's coming up to you says, "Mom, I want to do club football."
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to say no? Like those are the conversations that come out. And when I became a coach, I thought I'm going to learn about investments and bankruptcy and money and yada, yada. No, what I should have focused more on is how to support people through setting boundaries financially, saying no or offering something different when there's a bigger goal ahead, especially when it comes to kids and partners. So we're an evolving field. Financial coaching is relatively new, but our goal is to make it as common as getting a personal trainer at the gym.
Yeah.
Or, you know, having that person in your life help with your business. Like we want to make it as accessible and as normal as it can be.
That's awesome. Yeah. Keeping that human element, like you said, that's what's going to help with those moments where you're really focused on the emotional side, I guess, is a way you could say it. So.
Right, exactly. And so I think there's something you just can't take away, no matter how much technology advances or chat GPT, like I've seen, you know, budgets it'll make for you. And that's great until like the emotions set in, and money is very emotional.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot. It's a lot to take in. For me personally, before I agreed to coaching or anything like a new endeavor, I needed to take tiny bits in. So anyone listening can sign up for a free 35-day trial. There's zero credit card. We're not going to like bait and switch you and take your money. It's very intentional to opt in. So I say try it. You know, if that's something, any of this sounds interesting, seeing it, working through it, it's a great opportunity to try. A lot of our coaches do free first sessions even. So even if you're like, hey, I just want to pick someone's brain about debt repayment, how I can invest. Am I saving enough? You know, it's a great opportunity and a good way to kickstart 2025.
Yeah, I love it. And just to clarify, where can they find you on your website?
Yes, so it is www.mybudgetcoach.com. So all one word, of course. And I'm sure it'll be linked up so that they can find it easily. Pick from any of the coaches. I won't be heartbroken if you don't pick me. That's okay. We have amazing coaches.
We're all a team.
Every one of them. We're all a team. Yes. And so I think it'd be great to just try it out and hopefully, you know, get some good feedback from your audience.
Very good. Well, I'm glad to have you. I'm hoping that we get a lot of people who are going to learn how to budget in 2025 and make improvements to their lives.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Meg.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
The content in this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of your entire investment. Always conduct your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor or legal professional before making any investment decisions. The opinions expressed in this video are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of Ridge, Angel Funding, or VAS Portal.